President George W. Bush Jr. arrives today, October 18, 2003, here in the Philippines for an 8-hour visit. Thousands of Filipino nationalists are expected to assemble here in Commonwealth Avenue, the road leading to the House of Representatives, where Bush is expected to address Filipino legislators. The demonstrators will greet Bush with their anti-war and anti-globalization slogans. There are now some 2,000 composite members of the Philippine National Police and the Armed Forces of the Philippines blocking the Commonwealth Avenue in anticipation of the arrival of the contingent led by the Bagong Alyansang Makabayan.
Rallyists in Manila were joined by rural folk from the nearby provinces of Southern Tagalog, led by the Stop Bush Coalition. They have traveled for 5 days and braved several police blockades to join protesters in Manila. The anti-war demonstrators are now marching from the University of the Philippines to the House of Representatives. Also today, simultaneous protest actions are ongoing in various cities and provinces across the country. An estimated 50,000 Filipinos joined the protest actions nationwide. There were 15,000 rallyists in the Bicol region, 3,000 in Central Luzon, some 400 protesters up north in Baguio City, 4,000 in the Visayan region, and about 20,000 across Mindanao. Among the protesters gathered here today are the nationalist and progressive representatives from the party list Bayan Muna. They have joined the rally before going to the House of Representatives.
From this protest march, the three Bayan Muna representatives will join the session, the special session, to hear President George Bush. We'll be going inside the session hall and distribute protest ribbons like this to legislators against war, and then we would walk at the time President Bush starts his speech. As we had shown, our unity and solidarity and united action in trying to prevent the war on Iraq. In this very time, we are also appealing to all the anti-war elements all over the world to put pressures on the governments hosting the visit of President George W. Bush to resist any further American pressure for both economic concessions and deeper agreements in support of the U.S. war on terror. We should be able to prevent the opening up of a new front after in the face that the Afghan and Iraq war have not yet been concluded.
The 8-hour state visit of George W. Bush cost us money better spent on education and health, services which receive meager allocations from the national budget. The Macapagal Arroyo government embarked on an extravagant preparation. Malacanang Palace, the official residence of the Philippine President, was refurbished and renovated. A Barrio Fiesta state dinner worth 500,000 pesos or 10,000 US dollars was prepared. Government officials admit having already spent 14.5 million pesos for the Bush visit. But some $10 million were reportedly spent on crowd control alone. Malacanang refused to disclose the total amount spent for the 8-hour visit. In the name of security, police authorities, upon orders of Malacanang officials, resurrected the no permit, no rally policy of the Marcos dictatorship.
Kung sa lista ma'am, meron naman guidance ng pamunuan na no permit, no rally at depende sa mga kapulisan na namamahala dyan. Basta sa amin,
Makling Dulag, Consolacion Chiva, Melito Glor, Carmen Pobleta, Eman Nakaba, Lorena Barros, Chadley Molitas, Lisa Balando, Bert Olalia, Pakingim Baulibot, Mayang Algarve, Benja Hernandez, at lahat ng mga martir. Ipinagpatuloy nila ang diwang di pasisiil kanino man.
But as GMA prepared to meet her guest of honor, militant groups geared for their protest actions. Filipino nationalists were likewise busy preparing to meet President Arroyo's guest. Protests against the visit of George W. Bush are already in full swing beginning the first week of October.
Who is Bush for the Filipinos and why is he being met with protests? Let's ask Teddy Casino, Secretary General of the Bagong Alyansa Makabayan. Teddy, how do the Philippine People's Movement view Bush and his arrival in the Philippines?
As President of the United States of America, Bush is the symbol of American imperialism and the kind of policies that we all abhor from the United States. So as the number one leader of the number one imperialist country and terrorist country in the world, he really is a symbol of everything that we find wrong with the American government and with American nation as a whole.
Why is Bush being met with protests today?
Well, because as a symbol of imperialist America, he embodies basically everything that we hate about imperialist America. And he has come here to strengthen the unequal ties that bind the United States and the Philippines. And he has come here to push for his agenda of aggression and intervention in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, in other parts of the world. He is here to push for free trade globalization and the neoliberal economic policies that go with it that hurt the Filipino people. So we reject all that, and therefore we have to reject the visit of George W. Bush.
In their speeches during the rally today, the Secretary General of the ILPS Philippine Chapter, Rita Bawa, and Urban Poor leader Carmen Nanay Mameng Dionida has this to say on the visiting American president.
Si George Bush ay isang mamamatay tao! He is a criminal para sa mga bisita nating foreigner dito. Bakit ko po sinasabi na si George Bush ay isang kriminal? He is a war criminal sapagkat siya po ang nag-utos na maggera sa bansang Iraq. Marami siyang pinapatay na tao. Marami siyang pinapatay na mga bata, mga sanggol, mga matatanda. And therefore, George Bush deserves to be called a war criminal. Kaya, mga kasama, ituloy natin ang ating ito lamang ang tanging paraan upang balang araw si George Bush at ang mga sumusunod na imperialista ay mausig, parusahan at kung maaari nga ay bitayin din. Marami pong salamat.
Ipamukha natin kay George Bush na siya ang terorista at hindi ang mga mamamayang lumalaban.
Isampal natin sa kanyang mukha na hindi siya tanggap dito ng mamamayang Pilipino.
Ang pagtitipon na ito ay tanda ng isang malaki at maalat na pagtutol ng sambayanang Pilipino laban sa halimaw at walang ya sa tanas na si George W. Bush. Sa halip na tugunan ng demonyita sa Malacanang ang karaingan ng sambayanang Pilipino, hindi ganun ang ginagawa. At sa halip, ngayon sa pagdating ng buwisit na bisitang ito, ginastusan pa ng walang yang nasa Malacanang ng ilang milyong piso. Marami ang mga kabahayan ng mga maralita. Masdan na lang ninyo ang kahabaan ng Commonwealth na ito na kung saan dinimolis at ang mga kabahayan na malapit sa paliparan dinimolis din para daw makita ni Buisita na ito ay maganda. Maganda ang Pilipinas sa paningin ng kanyang kalaguyo. Mga kasama,
Protest actions took on various forms to dramatize the Filipino people's declaration that U.S. President George W. Bush is persona non grata and is not welcome in the Philippines.
Mga yangti, mga talagpag ko ay mabubuhay. Aalinaw-ngaw at darating ng sikto. Aalinaw-ngaw.
Various art forms state the message of the continuing crime of U.S. imperialism against the Filipino people.
In the background is an effigy made by Filipino visual artist Ugat Lahi. President Bush is depicted as a pirate to symbolize America's aggression, intervention, and pillage of the Philippines and other sovereign nations. Philippine President Gloria Arroyo is portrayed as a parrot on the pirate's shoulder to describe her unconditional support to the alleged war on terrorism of the United States.
Church people joined the nation in protest.
The main call of the militant church in this occasion has three components. First is to call for the return of the Balagiga bells, which was taken by the U.S. forces during the time of Philippine-American War, in which it is the property of the church of the Diocese of Samar. And this is a very significant occasion to raise this call to remind the Filipino people that the U.S., the Philippine-American War, has created a devastating effect on the lives of the people in Samar. And when we have this recollection, we equate this event to what is happening now, what the Bush administration is doing in the life of the Iraqi people and the people of Afghanistan, in which not only killing the person aging from 10-year-old up, but especially those who are in unborn babies.
Alam nyo ba kung bakit hindi makaalis ng Malacanang si Bush? Dahil nandito pa tayo! Kaya't hindi tayo pwedeng umalis dito, sapagkat kung hindi tayo umalis dito, posibleng hindi makarating ng Kongreso si Bush. Ayaw nyo ba yun?
Earlier, there was a threat to disperse the rally, but after the negotiations, the rallyists were given a few more hours to conclude their program. However, aside from the police barricade in front of the mobilization, the rallyists are now encircled by an additional phalanx composed of contingents from the Philippine Army and Air Force, allegedly to facilitate the flow of traffic. After a while, military trucks blocked the perimeter in a desperate bid to cover the rallyists when the Bush convoy passes through Commonwealth Avenue. As Bush is making his way to Congress, rallyists burned his effigy and capped the program at the Commonwealth Avenue with a call to strengthen the anti-imperialist front.
Sa ilalim ng pandaigdigang sistemang kapitalismo, mahigit 11 milyong mamamayan ang namamatay sa gutom at malnutrisyon. Maraming mga kababayan at maraming mga mamamayan sa buong mundo ang hindi nakakapag-aral. Maraming mamamayan sa buong mundo ang hindi marunong magbasa at magsulat. Maraming mga mamamayan sa buong mundo walang sariling tahanan. Laganap ang kahirapan sa buong daigdig. Partikular kung sa Pilipinas, laganap ang kahirapan. Sa ilalim ng ipinagmamalaki nilang pandaigdigang sistemang kapitalismo, maraming mamamayang magsasaka, manggagawa, nawawala ng trabaho, nawawala ng lupang sinasaka, maraming mga kabataan hindi nakakapag-aral. Dahil din sa sistemang ito, maraming mga mamamayan sa buong mundo ang pinapatay dahil sa walang kakwenta-kwentang gera na inilulunsad ng imperialismo. At yan ang kinakatawan ngayon nitong si George Bush. Kaya hindi dapat pagpugayan at hindi dapat magpiyesta ang mamamayan sa pagdalaw ni Bush. Kaya mga kasama, makatwiran ang pagpoprotesta ng mamamayang Pilipino. Marapat lamang pagpugayan ang mga mamamayang naririto nasa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa at maging nasa iba yung dagat na nagpoprotesta hindi lamang laban kay Bush kundi higit sa lahat, paglaban sa imperialistang Estados Unidos.
Meanwhile, inside Congress, Bayan Muna Party List Representatives Liza Maza, Satur Ocampo, and Crispin Beltran wore the peace ribbons they earlier distributed. The Bayan Muna representatives remained seated during the standing ovation given by legislators for Bush. Then, they stood up and walked out when Bush was about to deliver his speech.
Jump, MLSA!
Jump, MLSA!
Jump, MLSA!
Jump, MLSA!
U.S. troops!
Out now!
U.S. troops!
Out now!
Imperialismo!
Viva stop!
U.S. imperialist!
Number one terrorist!
Number one terrorist!
U.S. imperialist!
Mga kasama, mas nakasagpa natin! Lapit natin si George Bush!
As the end of the day draws near, rallyists marched the 15-kilometer distance from the Commonwealth Avenue towards Welcome Rotonda. The Rotonda is only a few kilometers away from the Presidential Palace, where a state dinner is being hosted by Gloria Arroyo for George W. Bush. Upon reaching Welcome Rotonda, marchers staged a street dinner in stark contrast to the state dinner for Bush.
I would say that the protest actions that we did today and the days before today was very successful. We were able to present a different side of things. Different from the official version that all Filipinos approve of existing US-RP relations. And we were able to make our argument that US imperialism is really one of the major problems in Philippine society. And there really has to be major changes in the way that the two countries relate. And we were able also to make a case against the US-led war on terror, against their free trade neoliberal policies, against their agenda, not only in the Philippines but in the Far East. And so probably the biggest achievement that we made was to mark a protest, no? To show the world that there are a lot of Filipinos protesting American aggression and imperialist globalization.
The protest action held today against the world's #1 terrorist, George W. Bush, shows the international community that indeed Filipinos are a peace-loving people standing up against U.S. hegemony. Their action also showed the world that the Philippine government, led by Bush's #1 supporter, Gloria Arroyo, does not reflect the aspirations of the Filipino people to be a truly free people in a truly democratic country.
Mga kasama, ang pagsusunog ng ating bandila ay simbolo ng ating galit sa pakikialam at pagpapahirap sa atin ng imperialismo, ang pandarambong na ginagawa sa atin ng gobyerno ng Amerika sa pangunguna ni George W. Bush.
Sa ngalan ng mga mamamayan ng Iraq na pinapatay ng gobyerno ni Pangulong George W. Bush. Sa ngalan ng mga mamamayang Pilipino na noong sinakop ng gobyerno ng Estados Unidos, isang daang taon na ang nakakaraan para sa mga magsasaka na naitulak palabas sa kanilang mga lupa dahil sa batakarang globalisasyon.
Isigaw natin, imperialismo!
Di bansa!